Boom shakalaka, what's going on, everybody? Randall here from Crypto Love, and I'm joined today by Alan Fong, the co-founder of Moonlight and also City of Zion, also NEP5. So, Alan, what's going on, man?
I'm doing great today. How you doing today, man?
Oh, doing very well. So, I'm excited to have you here today. We have a lot to talk about today,
Yeah.
but to begin with, let's find out a little bit about you. I'm sure a lot
Uh,
of people want to know.
okay. So, what do you want to know about me?
Well,
Let's
you
see.
look very young and you've done a lot with your life so far. So start out with that because you developed the NEP5 standard, which is basically creating the future. So,
Uh, yeah, Tyler Adams, who's also a co-founder of City of Zion and Moonlight, also had a lot of work to do with that. I just kind of tagged along for the ride, but it's something that we're really proud of since pretty much every single project on the Neo platform is using the Net5 standard for their tokens. So that's something that we're indeed proud of. But enough about that. Let's. I guess you wanted to hear about me. So
a little
what I
bit.
did previously is I was a research assistant doing a bunch of research at different places. University of Toledo, I was making photovoltaics, mixing up solar cells, things like this. Later on, I went to the University of Michigan, was a research assistant there in HPC, or high performance computing, which basically means I take a lot of really fast computers and make them do super nerdy stuff, molecule simulation, etc. um, that's a little bit boring, but I promise that it's important for someone in the world. Eventually, I moved into Neo, which I actually was brought into through Ethereum. Early on, several years ago, maybe like 5 or 6, I was interested in Bitcoin. I think this may have been before the Mt. Gox days. I'm not sure. I never used Mt. Gox, so I don't have any horror stories about that. I do have probably some Bitcoin lost on a hard drive somewhere, but I'm not going to dwell on that too much. But at that time, I didn't really understand what Bitcoin was. I didn't understand the concept of a distributed ledger or a blockchain. I basically just mined it because I thought it was something fun to do and forgot about it for several years until Ethereum came around with the concept of smart contracts. And smart contracts, are basically promises that you can share online. So you can know if you verified the smart contract and you read it through the code and see that it actually does what it says. You don't have to trust anybody else anymore. That's why it's called trustless, because you can just look at it and know that if person A puts an A, B is going to come out on the other end, guaranteed, no surprises. So that was something I found super fascinating because that can make a whole lot of things in the world way more efficient. And I mean, not just medical uh, or supply chain or any number of things. Government, if they adopt blockchain, could be way less slow than they are right now due to the bureaucracy involved. I could go on about this, but basically, I was super interested in smart contracts. That brought me into Ethereum, brought me into contact with Solidity, and eventually I found Neo. Back then, it was Ant Shares, and on the old Ant Shares Reddit, there was just like Fabwa and like you know 5 other people. But eventually, a bunch of us nerds gathered together and thought, what if we came together and tried to support this platform? It has good potential, but there weren't any English documentation. It was just all Chinese, not a lot of comments in the code, etc. So we thought, if we could really nurture this tree, we could make it into something really awesome. And so all of us came together. We formed City of Zion. Out of City of Zion came, we started noticing problems in the wider crypto community where people, would come to our City of Zion Slack or Discord and kind of, to put it bluntly, they would kind of beg for our developers to do stuff for them. They would say things like, I have an idea for decentralizing penguins or Kleenex or, you know, pillows. I don't know. And they would say, I have this amazing idea. I will raise a ton of money. I just need someone to build it all for me. And they would come in and they would ask us for that. And obviously first of all, we didn't want to give them our developers. And second of all, we didn't have a lot of spare room to give since they're a scarce commodity, especially in blockchain. You'll see people that want blockchain developers, but they're very much in high demand but low supply. There's not a lot of liquidity in that resource. Actually, funny story. Last year in the summer, I saw this posting from a bank, I think JP Morgan or Merrill Lynch, putting up a job application for a blockchain developer, like must know Solidity 10 years experience or something like that, and it's like 4 years old. So even the people that want blockchain developers don't really understand what they want. So that was one of the problems we wanted to look at. We wanted to combat that. We wanted to combat the liquidity of resources that wasn't there. And so we came up with the idea of Moonlight, which not only took advantage of blockchain technology, the ledger, to make things trustless, make it valid, but also would address this issue of being hard to find this sort of talent out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, that went on a little bit long, but
no, that was very good history, and I love the part about 10 years experience.
Yeah, you see that kind of thing from like I said, companies that want to get into blockchain, and you see a lot of big companies that want to pivot into blockchain. They're raising like billions of dollars, but they don't really understand it, and that's where I think this sort of thing comes about. They say, I want someone with 10 years of blockchain experience, even though Solidity's been around like only 4 years or something like this. So I think it's a symbol that it's a sign that companies are really starting to jump in, but they have a lot to learn as they go through the paces. That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah. So you say that there's not many blockchain developers. Just out of curiosity, how old were you when you got into programming?
I don't quite remember. I was very young when I started. Like middle school, elementary, when I started modding consoles and hacking them and making them do stuff that Nintendo didn't want me to do with them, which was fun since I get to do all these cool things, unlock all these new features, and make it do things that I wanted to do. That eventually led into me getting into an early form of pen testing, which is basically hacking. And from there, I don't know, it just kind of went off the rails and led to one thing to another, and eventually I ended up in blockchain and ended up here. So you say that I began at a very, very early age. I didn't really do any formal training until I entered college for programming. Before that, it was just me hacking around a bunch of stuff. But I think that was really where the early interest kind of sparked in terms of programming and blockchain and all these sort of developments.
Yeah. So for anyone out there who wants to get a job as a blockchain developer, just kind of figuring it out on their own is a good way to start.
I think it's a good way for anybody to start in anything. Once you have sort of inner passion, this sort of inner drive to learn more and do more, which is sort of what we're trying to solve the Moonlight platform, where people can they can freelance if they want. But you can also gather groups of people together that all are really passionate about what they're doing, and they can find the tasks that they want to do. And of course, in my opinion, people who are really passionate about what they do and really enjoy what they do and really understand their field, they end up doing a better job a lot of the time. So I think this is really something that we can help conduct and make more viable. But yeah.
That's a great point there. And I just wanted to point out that poster behind you that you, first off, bang up job on the Neo presentation in Sydney. That was an amazing presentation. So anyone who hasn't seen that, check it out on YouTube.
Right.
But you got the Steve Jobs poster behind you about finding your passion, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, Steve Jobs, he's a very polarizing figure. Some people say that he was a bit of a jerk. Other people look at him as sort of a god. I kind of take the good with the bad. I look at him as someone who started out with very humble beginnings. He eventually grew out into doing something that he wanted to do. He made most of his living as basically a showman, but he had a lot of philosophy that I do agree with. And one of the philosophies was that if you really want to be good at what you're doing, if you really want to enjoy what you're doing, then find something that you love doing. And I think a lot of people don't really have that opportunity, especially if you're stuck, in a 9-to-5 job that you don't particularly like. I mean, I don't think it's going to be possible to cure it completely forever, but I think with our platform, by matching people quickly up with, people who have tasks, people who like doing these tasks, and making it much more efficient, I think we can help, conduct that sort of shift in our economy. First of all, to a smart economy. Second of all, to an economy I think we can all enjoy a little bit more in getting involved in.
Yeah. So, I mean, I couldn't have set that segue up any better, but I mean, tell us about how Moonlight is going to do that, and just tell us about how Moonlight works in general.
Right.
Yeah. Everyone might want to sit down for this. It's going to get in depth.
Just a little bit technical. So Moonlight is really a platform that stands on three pillars. The first of the three pillars is the trustless resume. That's sort of our headlining piece, the big one that stands out. The second one is going to be a matchmaking engine, which does obviously what you think it's going to do. Third of all is going to be a project management platform, which allows people, not even just people with a lot of jobs. You can even use it for one job if you want. But we'll talk about a little bit more about that later. The first one we're going to talk about is the trustless resume. And trustless resume is a really interesting concept because we've had resumes ever since forever. Early in the days before we had digital resumes or things like that, we had people who would write things up on whatever word processor they have, or a typewriter, and just say their qualifications. Before that, we had people recommending each other, calling each other up on the phone, or by word of mouth telling them, this person is good at this person is that, et cetera, et cetera. And those were all early forms of what we would call a resume, basically a listing of what the person has done before, so that you can say, wow, I've done these things before, I have all these experiences, you can trust me, hire me for this job, I'm amazing. And that's worked pretty okay. It's worked mostly well for a long time, but we've begun to see a lot of limitations to things like word of mouth or just putting things on the internet, which, always believe what you read on the internet. But what people currently do right now, the biggest one right now is it's LinkedIn, right? Everybody uses LinkedIn to put, their college education, their volunteer experience, they were a leader of the student council, etc. But those sort of things, we see those limitations, especially in the crypto world, where LinkedIn is often a big tool used by people running crypto projects to kind of show off their team, show off their experiences, etc. And while I think a majority of them are being pretty honest about their LinkedIn profiles, a lot of people are not. And that's how crypto scams happen. And that's how you mislead and dupe people. And either they try to fake until they make it, which is pretty bad, but not as bad as number two, the people who try to absolutely scam people out of their money by putting this guy that went to Harvard as a PhD, all their advisors and all of their team members have PhDs from Harvard and do this and that, and were CEO at JP Morgan. All of them were somehow CEO of JP Morgan within the past 5 years. You see a lot of crazy, really dumb stuff, and you see people putting up fake pictures like Ryan Reynolds and hope people don't notice. But essentially, I mean, 3 weeks ago there was a scam in Vietnam, $660 million stolen because they had, they had everything. They had a white paper, they had a website, they had LinkedIn profiles with all these amazing people. But the thing is, you had to trust them. That's the bottom line. With anything that I've just talked about, people calling each other, people with their typewriter resumes, all these things, they all depended on trust. And that's been okay, but we think we can make that better. And that's where we come in, with the advent of blockchain, with the advent of trustless smart contracts, we can actually make these things trustless, or at least as trustless as we can to the best of our ability. So with our platform, what the trustless resume is people will actually do work on our platform. So say you want to do some development work, someone has development task, you matchmake with them, you do the task, you complete it well, they review you, you review them. You say, these guys were great issuers, these guys were great at resolving my task. The proof of the work is then, stored onto the blockchain. So we can show everybody that comes after that, these people did work before. We can prove it. It's stored on the blockchain. We know how long they took to do it. We know, if the people were satisfied with the job, etc. All that stuff is stuff we know. It's not something you have to trust because, it's absolutely, once that job is completed, locked right in. And over time, as you complete more and more jobs and build up a reputation, you can have this sort of trustless resume. Basically a collection of everything that you've done that people can look back on and see, well, I've seen this huge history of good jobs this person's done, and we know that they've actually done it. We don't have to go onto a LinkedIn page and see this guy has been doing amazing jobs for 12 years when you can look on their Moonlight profile and see, I can actually see each individual job they've done. And that creates the trustless resume. That means you don't have to trust that they have this amount of experience, because you can actually see that they have the amount of experience, that they have the skills right there in front of you. And so I think that's a really powerful tool. And that actually leads us to more possibilities with our platform. First of all, there's the matchmaking engine that I just talked about. It's pretty straightforward. We use a lot of the data collected from our trustless resume, historical data, recent data in case anything's changed, their estimate for the job right now. So they say, I think this will take about 3 days. Historically, they usually overestimate themselves a bit, so they adjust that a little bit, and that goes into maybe 2.5 days or something like that, and that goes into the project management platform, where the people managing the jobs, the people who issue the tasks, or if they're even managing a team, which is actually something that no platform has actually been able to do before, because things like Fiverr or Indeed, these are all sort of one-on-one sort of things, where you kind of ask a guy to mow your lawn for $10, or make a simple logo for $5, which, if you're using Fiverr, often turns out to be a crappy Google image, copy pasted for $5. You pay them the actual amount for the real logo, and it's just a higher resolution image of the same thing. According to my designer friends, a lot of shady stuff goes on in Fiverr, because you have to kind of trust that they know what they're doing. But with our platform, you don't have to trust them. You can know that they know what they're doing, and you can manage, actually, getting to the point that you can manage, unlike any other platform, which is sort of a one-on-one relationship, with the trustless resumes, that how well everybody performs, how well they can actually work together. You can actually create teams of people to create fulfill larger jobs that one person on themselves couldn't do, like create an application. You might need a designer, a back end, a front end, all these things together. You can hire them in a team on the Moonlight platform and actually get them to work together. And I think that's something that really expands the scope of what freelance and what gig economy and what a smart economy should be able to do. It really expands our possibilities. It's no longer just simple task one-on-one anymore. You can do pretty much anything on our platform, whether it's development or writing or law or any other sort of thing that involves human interaction. It can be done on our platform. But the project management platform, to boil it down simply as I can, it's basically where you can see everybody you're working with. You can see what their skills are. You can go down to the most granular level and take a look at how they impact each other. And we actually offer something really interesting, simulations, which is basically you can actually take a look at all the candidates that have proposed themselves for your job. You can take a look at their histories. You can swap them in and out of each other. Say you need 2 back-end developers, but 3 applied. You can take a look at which mashups of these 3 people would produce the best quality, or if you're not looking for the best quality, you're looking for the fastest timeline. You can take a look at their timelines and see which combination of these 2 will produce the fastest outcome. That's also something that you can do in our platform, which I don't know if any other platform has been able to do before, but it's all really, everything boils down to the trustless resume, because we have all that data. We have all the historical information. That's what makes everything possible. And I think it's really natural that something like this comes to be, because, I mean, think about it. It's your resume. In the modern day world, you have to go to, a bunch of separate parties for this. You have, resumes, you have like headhunters, you have recruiters, you have LinkedIn, you have to take your LinkedIn profile and, give it to recruiters, or you put on Fiverr. All these things are just separate, disjointed all over the place. Putting them together with the same boat of information, it just makes sense, in my opinion. If you want to make a cake, for example, and you had to go to one store for flour and one store for your equipment, and you had to go to one store for the frosting, it just doesn't make sense. You should kind of put them all together in one place. It's a lot more convenient, and it's just something that works a lot better, in my opinion, to produce a better quality product. It's just so much simpler for people to use as well.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds great from both the employer's perspective and the employee, because the employer gets to get the best team to do his jobs. He can either get one person, he can get a whole team of people who can do it as fast as he wants, or if he wants to do it as inexpensively as he wants, or whatever he wants, he could simulate those things.
Exactly.
And then for the employees, they actually get to just do the pieces that they really want to do. They follow their passions. They don't have to do everything.
Right. I think it's a system that is really only possible now with the advent of smart contracts, because we can make things trustless. We don't have to, go through endless layers of verification in between, which means that, everything can just flow from one point to the next. And I think we're probably one of the first, or maybe the first, to really take advantage of that in employment. Because a lot of other, so-called employment projects out there in the crypto space, really what they are is either just a LinkedIn with, a token bolted on top, or, a Fiverr, where instead of paying with dollars, you pay with like Bitcoin or something like that. I don't think that brings anything new to the table in my opinion. I think something that really takes advantage of, trustless nature of smart contracts and the ease with which you can, flow from one state to another, which you can just, piece everything together in the puzzle. I think that's really taking advantage of blockchain technology. And I think that's really where our economy is going to move in the future. Mm-hmm. Not just, what I called, if you saw my presentation, blockchain plus X. That's not going to work forever. Maybe it works right now for early fundraising, but really taking advantage of the full features of the blockchain, I think, is where we're going to go in the future. And so that's what we're trying to do right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of how effective the platform would be, you've got me convinced. But right now, a lot of people for jobs, they use things like Monster or Indeed or even LinkedIn. So have you guys started looking at how you're going to get adoption?
Yeah, we've looked at pretty much. We're very. I'm originally a researcher, so I do a lot of research. I'm very good at that, and we've identified, maybe 20 to 30 people, different teams that we've looked into and taken a look at their advantages and disadvantages, and we think we'll be able to put up a good offering. But as for adoption, that's always the major point of any sort of platform, whether it's a new blockchain or a new dApp or a new application. The important part is, as you say, getting a working population onto there. It's the way that Facebook started out. It would have died off if it hadn't gone viral and spread across Harvard and a bunch of campuses across the United States. So we sort of want to take advantage of a number of things. For example, that network effect that I described, with all social platforms have. We want to take advantage of that, first of all within Neo, right? So we're going to be using within our own team first. It's a concept known as, within the project management space, as eating your own dog food. Basically testing out your stuff, making sure you're the first one to experience all the pain of all the early bugs, or you spread it out into your alpha, and that's going to be within City of Zion. We know all these guys. We can invite them to use our platform. It'll make tasks easier for them. It'll be easy for them to see what they're doing, who wants them to do X, and so from there we spread out into a large crypto community. And that's one part. That's one part of the network effect we're trying to achieve, is spreading it from within the crypto community, having them organically spread it out. That's one part. Another part is we're actually going to be using a lot of the proceeds from our token sale to actually fund projects on the Moonlight platform. So we're going to be actually paying people to use our platform, something that is known in business as buying your customers, which sounds kind of bad, but on the other hand, if it increases adoption and people give us feedback for what they like, what they don't like about the platform, I think that's a worthy investment for us, and it will also help out a lot of people who want to start getting into crypto and want to start getting into freelancing. So that's the second part. Third part is good old-fashioned heavy advertising, which you might notice that we haven't been doing a lot of right now, and that's kind of because of my personal philosophy that when we're raising a lot of money doing ICOs, we see a lot of ICO projects out there that do all these social bounties that say, I'll give you 100 of token X if you spam Twitter and like our Facebook page, whatever, or you go onto Reddit saying get a lot of upvotes for a post about our stuff, or they do heavy banner advertising all over the place for the token sales on different websites, and do all these huge bonuses for people that rush to get into their token sale. To me, that's not really the direction we should be going. So for our token sale, we're being, relatively light on, flashy, loud marketing. We're doing things that really, instead of promoting the sale, instead of promoting people to buy our token, what we're really doing is going around to interviews like these and trying to educate people on what our platform is supposed to do. But of course, after we're funded, after we have a platform out there, after we have something for people to use, that's, I think, when we can start advertising people, because then at that point, I think it's reasonable to start advertising and start pulling people in to use it. But before you have something that's released to the public, before you have anything that people can actually start using, personally, I think that it's not a super good idea to start shilling super hard that you have something before you have it.
As we see all the time in crypto space.
Exactly. That's how, as I said before, I talk about scams a lot, but that's really how scams happen. They say we have something amazing that involves machine learning, AI, does virtual reality, augmented reality, super node, master node, God thing. It's just ridiculous what happens, and that's how people get their money stolen. And I think we can and we should be better than that in the crypto space.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one area where we're trying to lead. And so people have complained that we don't have a ton of hype because we don't do massive viral marketing. And well, there's a reason for that. It's sort of what we do. But after we have something out, you can definitely expect to see a lot more of that being pushed quite heavily.
Yeah. I mean, they call it in Texas, big hat, no cattle, all the people who, say they have a Lambo and whatnot, but really just have nothing.
Right.
So you were talking about your team eating their own dog food. So, just using all the segues we get here, can you tell us a bit about your team?
Yes. So our team, we have currently, City of Zion was founded by 9 members. And so about half of those members are working on, Next, the Neon Exchange. And the other half are basically working on Moonlight. But who we have on Moonlight right now, the co-founders from City of Zion that are also co-founders of Moonlight, that would be me, which, you know me already. Hi, guys. We have Tyler Adams, who is also a co-founder of City of Zion. He was actually, he's the architect of our project. He's built up a lot of the technical specifications. And we also have another co-founder, Michael DeWall, who's also doing, some front and back end stuff. But also we also pull a lot of talent from within City of Zion as well. We have Chris Birmingham, who he's our blockchain developer. He works on smart contracts and templates. And he actually was one of the participants in one of the City of Zion competitions. That City of Zion, we've run a couple of dApp competitions, our first one, our second one, and eventually we're going to start running our third one. But he was one of the winners from one of our dApp competitions with his project NeoTrade. And so, that sort of convinced us of his talent. And so we sort of brought him in to the fold. We also have, Travis Lin, who's another front-end developer for us, but he's very talented. He works super hard, and he's a great asset to our team. And we also have a lot of great advisors. One of them especially, Ethan Fast, who's also co-founder of City of Zion, co-founder of Next. He's also on our team. He's also been, huge help reviewing all of our things, giving us advice, and eventually may provide greater services down the line. But I think our team is honestly probably one of the strongest in the crypto space, because we have for months and years now, we've had experience in the crypto space, so we know what we're doing. I think with the amount of experience in our team is just kind of phenomenal. We're very lucky to have such a talented and experienced team with, proven experience. And that's something I think a lot of projects could use a lot of. That's what propels a project to the forefront, is having a great team, not just a concept, but a team that can actually bring that to fruition. And I think that's something that we really have right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like a lot of teams, even though they may have people with computer science backgrounds, this will be their first foray into anything blockchain related. Whereas City of Zion, I mean, you guys are basically the blockchain developers. So that's awesome. Yeah. So also you were talking about having a workable product. So when's that coming up? Or Do you have any news about MVP, alpha, beta, anything like that?
Right. So right now we've been focusing very heavily on our token sale, which is, our KYC APIs, our frameworks, our legal. All this has to be taken care of very carefully. We take a lot of time. We spend a lot of money taking care of all these things to, first of all, make sure that our token sale goes off that hitch. Second of all, to make sure, we're legally recognized as a utility token, to make sure that everything is all right in place, that SEC or MAS, which is in Singapore, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, which is where our HQ is based, doesn't shut down our project. So that's something that we've been very careful with recently, and so that's been taking up a lot of our time. With that's basically our main focus of Q2, which is our pre-sale and then our public sale. Moving into Q3 is when you can start to see, early releases of our product to people like alpha testers, beta testers. That's when we're going to start eating our own dog food. Q4 is when we think it's more likely that you're going to start seeing something tangible. And Q1 of 2019 is when we think we'll actually be able to push out a polished product, initial product for people to start using. We're pretty, seems sort of like conservative timeline, which, over the course of half a year, we're building a platform. But at the same time, we're actually been moving very quickly in terms of development with everything we've been doing. So I think we're pretty confident we'll be able to match our deadline. A lot of projects, they say, we'll have something out within 2 weeks or 1 month. We try to be a little bit more realistic so we can push out something that's not rushed, something that people can actually start using, something that's gone through a lot of rigorous testing. So if we want to put out a product, we think we want to do it right. And so
Awesome.
Q1 is, I think, of 2019 is when we expect that a lot of people will be able to use our product.
Okay. So the first thing you mentioned coming up then is the ICO.
Right.
Talk to us about that.
So recently, we did our token sale in a few stages. So first of all, we did a pre-sale. We could only accept 50 SaaS, simple agreement for token futures and future tokens, and that's due to the requirements placed on us by the MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and we put it out there quite clearly why we have to do this. It's in order to comply with law, not because we love whales and market manipulation. Actually, something that we've been pushing very hard against is whales and market manipulation. So we have a pre-sale where a number of people can buy a larger allocation of our tokens, and actually we select the people who are eligible to participate in the pre-sale. We've had over 1,000 entrants into the pre-sale and hundreds of millions of dollars in proposed offers. So you could say that we're pretty much set for in terms of the amount of funding. The important part, though, isn't really the amount of funding, in my opinion. It's finding the people that can provide us Moonlight and our platform users with a sort of return. So people who invest in us will have to invest in us in more than just giving us their money. We want to look at people who can give us, VC connections or allow us to reach out further, allow us to get actual use, bring us in contact with business partners and people who are willing to use our platform. Those are the sorts of people that we're looking for when we're selecting for pre-sale. And besides our careful selection, we're looking for people that don't dump. We also have a vesting schedule that we put in place to sort of also anti-whale that a bit more. So the vesting schedule, it's basically a sort of a waterfall schedule, a little bit like the US tax structure. You get, a small amount initially, and then a few months pass and you get your next amount, and then another few months pass and you get your next amount, and eventually you get your entire stack. But when you start out, you're going to have, if you buy the maximum amount from our pre-sale, you would have about 250,000 tokens, which is about equivalent to what would happen if you bought the max at our in our public sale. So everybody is sort of at the same starting range for the first few months, and that's something that I think is important, because a lot of when token sales begin and when they start listing on exchanges, a lot of the dumping and market manipulation actually happens really, really early in the process. Like within the first week or the first month, that's where you see all this, crazy, pumps into these super high, these super low dumps. All these things happen relatively quickly at the beginning of a listing or right after a token sale. That's what happens. So by putting them around the same playing ground for the first few months, that enables us to sort of reduce the amount of, manipulation and influence by these huge whales that would, sort of just crap over, the majority of the people. That's not something that we want. So that's something that we've also put in place. So that's the first part. That's the pre-sale, where we're looking for partners and companies and corporations and VCs. Second part is the public sale, where there's going to be a greater number of people that are eligible for the sale. And those people are going to have, obviously a lower cap, but I think it's still going to be a pretty good cap for the people that are eligible for the public sale. It's not just, we've seen a lot of frustration about people trying to doing, half caps on the token sale, a lot of frustration for people. So we want to make sure that for people who want to take part in our token sale, it's really worth their time and it's really worth their money, that they have a substantial investment in our project, not just a little bit of dust. So that's something that we're really planning forward for our public sale. We just closed our pre-sale form yesterday, actually. So we have to go through all the people. We have over 1,000 entrants. It's going to take us a little bit of time to get through them, to pass out staffs, to get these signed, all these things to make sure that we're in full compliance, pool in funds. After we're done with our pre-sale, we're going to launch our public sale. Not immediately. It's going to take a little bit of time for us to make sure and double check that everything's right, but we're going to launch our public sale. It's pretty soon. We're planning for a Q2, so that's, probably sometime next month or the month after, we're going to be launching our public sale. And, everybody that's signed up that's in our Telegram or signed up to our newsletter, which, you can just go to moonlight.io, our website, go to the bottom. There's a newsletter link right there. You can sign up for our newsletter. There's no confirmation email, just in case you're wondering. A lot of people have asked us about that and, freaked out. I didn't get a confirmation email. We don't have one. So as long as you enter your email on that site, you're going to get all the updates from us about things like our, any news in terms of development or our, public sale, or whether you got in or whether you weren't in, et cetera. All that stuff can be done through our newsletter, and we're going to announce all that through our public channels as well.
Awesome. So yeah, anyone who wants to can look that stuff up. And I really like how you guys have your anti-whale tactics, because I remember also Fabio was talking about something like that with NEX at DevCon. And it's just so awesome how more people haven't thought to adopt that yet. But it really just goes to share that sense of community that you guys have and are building up. And that reflects in both City of Zion, in Neo, and also in Moonlight.
Right. Well, the community is really what brought, Neo from Antshares to what it is today. I think we have probably one of the best communities in crypto, because we know we're not just, if you go onto, the Neo subreddit, that people aren't just, shilling things. They're actually asking hard questions. They're challenging City of Zion. They're challenging Neo. They're really trying to research and look into, the facts of what's going on. And that's something I think is important, especially in a space like this, where, scams and all these things are rampant, that people actually look to check their information and look with a critical eye at things. And so because we've been doing things, I think, in a good way, in a reasonable way, in a professional manner, I think our community has really supported us through all of this. And for our projects, which are Next and Moonlight respectively, the community is also something that plays a huge part in getting our platforms, up and running. For Moonlight, you need a huge user base. And of course, where do you pull that user base from? You pull it from the community. So community is something really valuable, something that we're trying to nourish and trying to incentivize to, get involved with all of these different things. And so that's why we're doing what we're doing with what we are.
Great. So since we talked about the ICO, let's talk about how the Lux tokenomics work. How does a token work in the ecosystem?
So on our platform, you can use Lux for a number of things. First of all, it can be used as a remittance method, which is basically a payment. An issuer says, I'll pay 10,000 Lux for someone to, paint a cat for me. And someone says, sure, I'll paint a cat for you. And the person says, okay, so there's a number of ways we can conduct remittance. I can pay you up front. I can pay you at the end. I can pay you, in installments as you reach certain milestones. And that, I think, is a great amount of flexibility both for the issuer and the task resolver, in that they can, if the task resolver, for example, doesn't have as much reputation, the task issuer might want to say, I'll just wait and see until, you're done with everything, and then I'll pay you, to make sure that, they don't get scammed out of their money. Or if they see this person has a lot of reputation, they'll say, okay, we'll pay you up front. On the converse side, if the job resolver has a lot of reputation, but the task issuer hasn't had a long history of issuing jobs, they don't exactly know what's up with this guy. Maybe he's going to try and take my work and scam me, the resolver, out. Well, they can demand to be paid up front, so that they can say, well, look at my history, I've done all these jobs, pay me up front, because you don't have a lot of history, I don't trust you, so you pay me up front for my job. And they can do it that way. Or you can compromise and do sort of a milestone sort of payment to sort of distribute the risk. And so that's one use of Lux Token, which is remittance on the platform. You can use it for all these different things. And on our platform, what we do is we take fees for every single job. So say, and I'm just making up numbers here, so don't quote these as hard fact, but say, you issue a task and a person accepts it. Once that job is resolved, the Moonlight platform itself will take, like 1% or 2% or 5% of the amount paid, whether it's in Lux or Neo or Gas or something else. And because we're planning on supporting a number of different cryptocurrencies for our platform. It'll take a certain percentage of that. And with certain cryptocurrencies like Neo or Gas or Lux, the percentage that we take is going to be lower, since it's supporting the Neo platform. With other cryptocurrencies, you might take a higher percentage. But what happens is that percentage is actually not given to us, the company. It's actually distributed. Well, first of all, it's all sold to Gas. And then that gas is actually redistributed to people who hold the Lux token and use their platform. So that's sort of a passive income sort of thing that you can get if you're holding Lux token. And you can kind of think of it as, sort of divisible Neo in a sense, because it also, will get you gas as a sort of reward for using our platform for holding our tokens. So that's another way it can be used. The third and most interesting use, in my opinion, is that it is sort of an anti-scam mechanism. With our platform, we take fees, as you know, from every single person that issues a task and takes a task. When that's all done, we take a fee. Suppose a person wants to game our platform and make themselves look really good. Like, for example, Bob goes onto the platform and he issues like 1,000 super low-cost jobs to himself, and then completes them and makes it look like he has this amazing portfolio of, all these jobs that have been completed with like 5-star reviews. And so he wants to dupe the next person into paying him, 20,000, Neo or something up front. Well, first of all, we have information when he completed his job. So it would look really suspicious if one guy is completing all of his own jobs over the course of 2 days. But supposing that doesn't drive people away, every single task on the platform, every single task that Bob issues and resolves by himself, it's going to take a little bit of what he has as a system fee. So that limits the amount of times that Bob can issue these jobs to himself, because eventually he's going to run out of money. And so the first person that really takes Bob up on his job is, going to out him out as, first of all, a scammer, so his reputation is ruined. And second of all, because he's been issuing all these phony jobs himself, and the system platform has been taking all these fees, Bob no longer has any money. So one, he has ruined reputation, and two, he's poor. So that's one way our token and our system as a whole actually works to reduce the number of scammers. And I think that's really interesting use of the token, and
Yeah.
something that I found personally really, really important in a system like ours.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have put a lot of thought into how to make everything work, how to make it beneficial for the employers, for the employees, and also getting rewarded in Neo Gas is awesome.
Yeah.
Makes it very cool to hold on to.
Yeah, because, a lot of projects, they'll go off, and if they want to do a 2-token model, they'll spin off their own version of Gas, which to me, it's just kind of mind-boggling because we already have this perfectly good gas right here that you can distribute with, proportional to your holdings of another token. It's not that hard to do. I think by creating, an endless number of additional tokens, it contributes to, fragmentation of the entire Neo ecosystem. And that's not something that I would really want to promote because it leads to a weaker ecosystem overall if it's sort of fragmented and shared all over the place like that. I think by sort of gathering around gas as sort of standard system currency, I know, NOS is looking into doing that, Next is looking into doing that, we're looking into doing that. I think that will help promote a stronger, healthier ecosystem.
Yeah. So I guess the last few things. So you just mentioned NOS. You have some partnerships that you're involved in. Do you want to speak about any of those?
So actually, I can just pull up our page. We have over the past few months built up quite a repertoire. So we have our Neo Global Capital investment of around $1 million. That was nice to have. They're kind of they're actually put into the pre-sale phase of our token sale. So that means they have to sign a SAFT too. Everything has to be legally done. But City of Zion, obviously, we're working with them. We have a lot of people in the community that will support us, that will help us test our platform. Thor is an interesting case because a lot of people think that Thor and Moonlight are competitors because we're both sort of in the workforce sort of area. But cases actually, we try to do different things. We're really different. What they want to do is sort of integrate with existing, gig economy apps like Lyft or Uber or, all these things out there and try to provide remittance in the form of cryptocurrency. They'll also, look into getting things for like insurance and debit cards and credit cards for people that are using crypto in their daily lives. And that's something that we thought was interesting. We're not really doing that. We're sort of more of a freelance, sort of a white collar sort of marketplace. And we don't do any of those sorts of things. So we thought to bring them into the fold, we could partner with them by making these two parts of the system work together. They can provide insurance and debit cards and all these sorts of things that they're looking into for users of the Moonlight platform. That makes, I think, both ends work together quite well. They get more users, we get more users. And so it's sort of a symbiotic relationship. And so that's how our relationship with Thor is right now. VDT Network is actually one of our, is actually a big customer. They would count as a big customer because VDT, what they do, they're a render farm. And what they would do is use us sort of as their front end. People request jobs through the Moonlight platform to be rendered on the VDT render farm network. And then that comes back and that's returned through the Moonlight platform to the person that had issued the job. And they're actually an example of, an outside third-party automated system which we would support. We could support things like, for example, AIs. For example, people could put up their AI on our platform as a task resolver. People issue jobs to that, goes through the back end to their system, comes straight back to the Moonlight, and it's automated like that to the issuer. So that's something else we support. NOS is an interesting partnership because we're actually going to be helping them flesh out their ecosystem. They're trying to be an OS, for mobile and desktop for blockchain in general. And as I think sort of a cornerstone of a smart economy, being a smart workforce, integrating that into NOS as part of, one of its major bottom lines, helping, even using Moonlight as a platform to help develop NOS is something that is considered to be as a use case as well. So that's NOS. And our last one that we have listed so far, because there are more upcoming, is Red4Sec, which is the security team that we have on City of Zion and who's been doing security audits of all these Net5 projects in the Neo platform. And they're also going to be our partner in doing security audits for our platform as well to make sure that there's no exploitable bugs, nothing that could really ruin our users' days. And so they're, I think, an incredibly important partner for us as well. We're probably one of the most important, actually. We take our security and all of our platform very seriously. So that's why we're very, very happy that they're on board with us.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. You got a lot of good partnerships, and congratulations on the receiving money from Neo Global Capital. That's huge. They don't really support that many projects.
That's true.
Yeah, so that's huge. Well, I made it through my questions here. Anything else that I didn't touch on that you were looking to talk about or that you'd like to let people know?
Geez, I've just been kind of running my mouth and been spamming your entire stream with this vomit of technical information.
It's been a lot of fun though. You've had a lot of good analogies like painting cats and
Right, right. But I guess the last thing I would really encourage people to do is if you're interested in our platform, you can go to our website, moonlight.io. Our white paper is on the right corner. We're going to be introducing localizations for different parts of the world, like China and Japan, pretty soon. We've had great partners helping us do translations and build up our international community with this as well. So we're really grateful for that, but you can look forward to that. For now, we have an English white paper. You can see on our website. It's like 40 pages, so just a little bit of light reading for people who are interested in that sort of thing. But if you would rather prefer to just get updates on our status and our progress, you can go to the bottom of our website. We have Twitter links, we have a Facebook page, we have a Telegram community that you can get involved with. We have our newsletter. You can just sign up with your email below. We really recommend that because that's the number one way we're going to push out information to everybody is the newsletter. So you can sign up for that if you want the latest information.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Alan, from Moonlight. It has been a pleasure, man.
Thank you.
And then, keep in touch, and we'll see you later. All right.
Well, thanks a lot for the interview.
Cool.
See you all next time.